Welcome, everybody, to the Healing Place podcast. I'm your host, Teri Wellbrock, and smiling big yet again in my heart and my face. I love these beautiful conversations with beautiful souls. So today I have Cindy Benezra, and she is author, speaker, entrepreneur, philanthropist, and advocate. And we are here to talk about her memoir, Under the Orange Blossoms, and so much more. So welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. It's good to be here.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. I have to tell everybody too, I'm just going to do this little plug beforehand, before you and I to dive into a beautiful conversation of, so if you aren't on the Facebook page for the Healing Place podcast, go join us. I think we're like closing in on 19,000 followers there right now, but I just launched Brave Kids Volume 3. I co-authored it, and it's $1.99. If you're listening to this, you can get the Kindle version. So go do it. We're trying to hit #1. So there you go. My little personal plug before we talk to Cindy about everything that's going on in her life. So yeah, so let's just dive right into your memoir, Under the Orange Blossoms. Can you talk to listeners about the motivation and what inspired you to write this book?
So, I'm a sexual abuse survivor, and my father is my perpetrator. And I've actually been searching my whole life, actually, for an apology from my father or recognition that he sexually abused me. He was a very violent man, but in his elder years, he was sick, and I decided, well, really out of convenience, that I was going to take care of him, because the hospitals kept on calling and I was his executor. So I thought, okay, I'm taking care of dad. I have 4 children and one with special needs, and at that time, I just thought, like, this is another thing on my plate, and I just, out of convenience, I just thought, okay, I'm moving him up from California. He's going to be next to me. I live in Seattle, Washington. And in that time, as he was getting on the right meds, and I was seeing him pretty much every day, um, I asked him again, probably for maybe 5,000 times. I've asked him so many times, "Why have you done this?" He would never admit it. And then he decided to admit it. And he admitted why. And not only that, why he did it, it was his thoughts behind it. And when I was listening to his reason, his rationale, of course, I didn't find it anywhere acceptable. But what I recognized, that he had a story too. And I started to record it because I couldn't believe what I was hearing. I just could not believe it. And I would go home. I'd actually feel sick to my stomach, like I was going to vomit. And just in complete misbelief, I played back to my husband. And then before you know it, I thought, maybe this could help somebody. And so I confronted my father and I said, you know what? Can I write a book on, and tell my story? Would you be okay? So I got consent with my father to write this book. I don't go into big graphic details, but what I do is I tell the journey and the story of a young girl growing up with a pedophile, and what my experience was like. And uh, it's sort of like my transformation from a young girl to a teen, to a mom, to a mom raising children, a single mom going on, and to my current place, and that is a grandmother. So I've had all ranges of emotions and feelings. And people, when I would share my story, they would always tell me, I just want to know what got you through. I need hope. And so that's what the story is. It's more about inspiration. And in the very, very back, I have a self-help section. And that's usually what people want to know, is the how, like little tidbits of how to heal. How do we go on and how do we persevere? And that's kind of where I became an advocate for sexual abuse survivors. And I have to say, I love this. This is like my calling, and I'm very passionate about this because we are so much, we are 1 in 4 out there that are reported cases. That's 1 in 4 women and 1 in 6 men, which to me sounds epidemic. So those
Yeah.
are the only reported cases. So it goes on a lot more. And um, often I think the statistics are more what happens within siblings, and it's people that you know within your family, within your internal family and external family. So it's not the person underneath. I don't know. I went on a retreat one time, a women's retreat, and it was like two truths, one lie. And this lady that we were all giving our lies and truths, and everybody said, "Oh, I never would have believed that you were ever sexually abused." And I asked why, like why? And they go, "Well, you don't look like it or you don't act like it." And that just blew my mind because I know the statistics. And what I thought was interesting, I asked everybody there, I go, "Well, do you know of anybody or has anybody here been sexually abused?" And they all said no. But interesting enough, when I stepped aside and got to know people a little bit more, two of those people, and there weren't that many in this group, came up and said, "Yes, I was sexually abused." And then others later on said, "Yeah, I guess I know somebody," or "Yeah, my brother," or um, was sexually abused or something like that. And then as I started to unfold, I recognized that there are so many more people. Interesting enough, I have more men following me, and I think it's because they don't have a platform to talk on. As women, we're very gifted in our speech and in our freedom to express ourselves, but I think it's harder with the societal norms where men find it very uncomfortable to share their story or share that anything has ever happened. And I hear constantly men telling me that I've never shared, my partner doesn't know, my wife never, she doesn't know, my nobody knows this. And so when I hear that, I just, not only is it heartbreaking, it's just really we're lost in society of a place where we could find comfort and healing and tools to carry on
Yeah. And
setting.
I mean, there's so much there that I know for me, like one of the things that really resonated when you were speaking was when my mom was an alcoholic. And so, well, as I've been writing my memoir, which I told you before we started recording, um, I sat her down. I actually had her on this podcast twice to talk about our journey of forgiveness that we had gone on together. And she gave me her stamp of approval. And on her deathbed, she said, It's time to put it out there." Because I remember telling her, "Mom, it's going to be our ugly truths. Like it's going to be, you know, everything that's happened." But the thing that I wanted to tell you is when she was had gone on a drinking binge, when I'm standing at the bottom of the foot of her bed at the hospital, tears streaming with my sister. And I said, "Mom, it's time you deal with your childhood trauma. You've obviously been diving into this bottle for, you know, 70 something years." She was 82 at the time. And she unleashed her truths of what had happened to her. So you were talking about, you know, your dad talking about his own journey. Like I shifted and saw her in a completely different way. It didn't justify the behaviors, but it helped me understand, oh my goodness gracious. Okay, hold up a second. Like this trauma that the little 4-year-old in her who been horrifically sexually abused had been carrying that around for 78 years, you know, and hadn't said a word and hadn't told anybody until that moment. And so, yeah, it just helped me. And I'm so glad that your dad finally admitted it.
Well, I'm glad that you got a chance to hear it. There is something, a lot of people don't get a chance to talk about it or hear an apology. Or, I have to say, first of all, what my father said to me as an apology completely enraged me. Actually, it did the opposite. But I thought, well, that's his reality of it. And I think I had to take it. That's as best as I'm going to get. But what I recognized, even if you do hear the apology, even if you do hear you have an open conversation, really the magic and the truth of it is how we respond to it. And we have the magic to really kind of forgive ourselves, forgive the other person, and move forward. And if forgive is not the right word, then we have the magic to move forward and have an acceptance level within ourselves and find those healing tools to do so.
Yeah, and beautifully put. And I'm so glad you brought up that forgiveness part of it because I've said it on for a long time on this show that forgiveness is such a personal journey that it you don't have to travel that forgiveness journey. I mean, I know I personally did it because it was what I needed. I knew I needed it, but I would never ever like I just think everybody knows their own story, right? We all have our own story and how you're right, how we move forward um and
Mm.
respond. It's just so individual. So yeah, again, thanks for reminder, that reminder. Yeah.
Yeah, that I think healing from sexual abuse and trauma is definitely an individual, it's an individual journey. And um, I get asked this a lot. Well, I've been in therapy for 4 years. Well, am I done? Do you think I'm done? And I can never answer that because it's an individual process. However, I remember thinking that multiple times. I've been doing this for 57 years. 5 years of my life, this happened. It happened from 5 to 10. And I spent 57 years trying to make sense of it all and heal from those 5 years. And the reason it ended in 5 years is because my dad is attracted only to prepubescent children. And after that, I went through puberty and I became, quote, a woman. And so hands off, my dad never touched me again. But the scars of my life, that formed who
Mhm.
I am, happened during those pivotal times. And ever since then, I've been looking for I'm recollecting those shattered parts of myself that I felt that were disturbed or lost or fragmented that I needed to reclaim. And it's been a long journey and it's taken me many, many years of therapy. And that journey hasn't always been, as we know, it's not a straight line. There's lots of loops. Sometimes I couldn't handle any more therapy, or I tried to find the right ones, alternative. I have found that professional trauma therapists have been the best for me personally because they go right in and they delve in it, and it's fast. And then I could take a break and then process it. And for me personally, that's why I feel like the healing from trauma, it does come. You have to allow yourself the grace to comprehend and understand, feel, and validate yourself, take a break, and then go back in. And if there's something more to dig around, then you go back in. But often it's your own journey. There were years where I was just like, I can't deal with this. I just want to pretend this never happened. And that was perfect for me. But it would always come up. And I think when you know there's more to do, it's always going to come up back up
Yeah.
in your yes. Mhm.
Yeah. And another great reminder, thank you for everyone listening, is that I went 25 years. I went to therapy immediately after I was involved in two bank robberies in my early 20s and after the second bank robbery. And immediately went into therapy and they put me on antidepressants and anti-anxiety meds and I was doing everything I was supposed to be doing. And then I just stopped all of it. And for 25 years, just battled severe panic attacks on my own until 2013. I mean, there I was, what, in my 40s, and said, okay, I think it's finally time I deal with this. and yeah, did EMDR therapy for 4 years. But again, I tell folks, it you have to find what works for you. So again, I'm glad you brought that up and that it's such an individual journey. And if EMDR doesn't work for you, then do CBT or do EFT or do neurolinguistic, what art therapy, whatever it is. Find your thing. Yeah.
Right. I think after sexual abuse, uh, we often lose our voices and we feel powerless. And that is one of the struggles that I constantly try to obtain. And it took me many, many times to find my voice. And finding your voice doesn't mean doing a podcast like this. Finding your voice could be journaling, it could be sharing with a friend. If you feel open to share with a therapist, I think that's when you step in. And if you could share that first initial thought that, yes, I am a survivor of sexual abuse, that is 50% of the work. I think it kind of reminds me of my divorce. Before I would, or a job that I just hated, I would think like, oh, I'd have to get out of this job. I have to get out of this job, or I have to get out of this marriage. It took me, 7 years to do that. But then eventually when you do it, you just take you jump and you take that leap, and there you're on the other side. And half of that work, half that angst is just taking that first step.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for sure. Anticipatory anxiety. That was like my go-to, right? Like I always was like, oh, the worry about it. Yeah, yeah. One of my favorites that I did, and I still continue to do, um, a big journaler, but I started writing, and someone had suggested it to me as a person of faith, writing letters to God. And it can be, you can write a letter to the universe, you can write a letter to a tree, whatever it is, and then burning it because it sent that negative energy out into, just got rid of it. But yeah, like being able to just release it and um yeah, let it go. So it's
Hmm.
just very cathartic.
Absolutely. And sometimes we're internal healers. And that internal healing could look doesn't mean that it's just solo, but there's parts where you just share with a friend or maybe writes a portion of that and you share that just only with yourself and then maybe with somebody else. So there's lots of ways to start that journey in healing.
Yeah, yeah. Now, do you work with people individually, or is it like are you out there in the universe, in the world, on a stage, sharing your story, your truths, and guiding people along their healing journeys?
I don't do structured workshops or anything like that. My intent is really just to start the conversation around sexual abuse because that, I mean, we're still uncomfortable. I mean, the
Hmm.
day I stand in a room and say, I am a survivor of sexual abuse and feel comfortable in my own skin and not feel judged, I think that's when we're at a place that we could start thinking about removing the stigma, just sort of like if we talked about alcoholism, we don't feel anything. I mean, you think like, oh, alcoholism, that's tragic disease. Or if we talk about opiate addictions, we're like, oh, yes, that's real because we talk about it. But when it comes to sexual abuse and we are sexual beings, that becomes a completely different step for emotionally for everybody. And until we get to the point where we could openly talk comfortably without judgment about sexual abuse. I think that's the first step. And so that's my goal is just to keep on talking and bring awareness. And so I speak, and this is what I speak about. Yes.
Yeah. Well, again, I applaud you so much because it is such a needed conversation. Obviously, by the just heartbreaking numbers, like you said, 1 in 4 for girls and 1 in 6 for boys. And I to me, to go down a dark road for just a minute, like I'm like, who are these people that are abusing children? Like what they walk among us, right? Like what I don't understand. And I know, you're talking about your dad and him being one of them. And to me, it's just like I just have such a difficult time wrapping my head around it. I had multiple um transgressors from a 16-year-old neighbor. My mom sent me to borrow a can of soup when I was 10 and I didn't come back for a while. And she never asks, where the heck were you, when you went to get the can of soup? Molested by a 19-year-old. The mom wasn't home, but the son was and molested me. He said I had to earn the can of soup. Um, so I again, I think where where are we going wrong? Like, what is it? And maybe that's just a way deep conversation for a whole other podcast episode, but it's like, what's happening? Like, why does it continue? Why haven't we been able to put the brakes on this?
For Ben.
Um,
And I really feel part of it is just because we are so uncomfortable talking about it. So if you're not talking about it, we can't bring awareness to any of the root causes or how we could prevent this. And I do believe the more we talk about it, we could find ways of prevention and the solutions I do not have. I am just here to talk about it because it is really, truly epidemic. I
yes.
do that I think as a whole, as a collective, we want to find a way to talk about it, but we're not just given the opportunities because it's considered a very grim and dark conversation, but it shouldn't be. I mean, it should be something where we feel more comfortable talking about our bodies and we're sexual beings and that's okay and get comfortable about that. I think it has a lot to do with sexuality.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, again, there's so much depth there. Sorry, I was adjusting my chair. Um, yeah, we could go down a rabbit hole, but we only have half hour. Oh my goodness. Well, I certainly wanted to give you an opportunity to maybe address anything or leave people with some words of wisdom, anything you wanted to talk about that we hadn't had a chance to address yet.
Um, I have to say for listeners out there and the ones that are curious about looking for resources around sexual abuse, there are a lot of 1-800 numbers. There's great resources online. Look at RAIN, a fabulous organization. And just to let you know that you are not alone. And again, your healing journey it begins with you and it doesn't go in a straight line. And you are worthy and loved. You are loving and deserving to be healed. So I really hope and encourage you. And if you want to reach out to me, I have a blog. It's cindytalks.com. You could reach out there. I have lots of people reaching out to me there. And I also will have this episode showcased on there too. So please reach out to me. And if you're interested in looking or reading my book, it's called Under the Orange Blossoms. And it's coming out in Spanish in January. And I'm also coming out with a workbook. Very excited about that.
That is exciting. Congratulations. That's awesome. And I've not heard of rain. So is that an incest um
It's an
specific group?
kind of complete encompassed around sexual abuse, sexual violence. Yes.
Okay.
Mhm.
Okay. Yeah. Well, to me, like again, as a survivor, I I know from my personal journey that I went down, well, there's just such a stigma that I walked around with for so long, right? Like I was the one to blame. Like I I I remember thinking, did I have a target? Did I get off vibes? What was it? Why did they keep coming after me? What was it? And that was a big part of the process, was realizing that I wasn't to blame, and that uh I think I think predators are very drawn to those who are oh, what's the word? I'm so drawing a blank. Not gullible, but oh my gosh, why has it gone out of my brain? But I just I was such a timid kid. And so there was just that they like honed in, right? And so I carried that with me into adulthood. And so I just think what you're doing is so beautiful, because I just think you're helping people, one, find their voice, but two, that empowerment piece of it. Like when I found the empowerment piece of it, everything started to shift.
Yeah. And Terry, to your what you were talking about, I think the predator set of like the mindset of a predator. Uh, I think some people develop it. It becomes a form of manipulation, and that's something that they really focus on. That's their power. That's their power in a sense trip. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody's asking for it. I don't think it's because you wore the right clothing or it's because of anything you did. It's unfortunate. And they, people, that mindset look for opportunities.
Yeah.
They, and when I was listening to my father, that was the part that I just got sick to my stomach, where I just thought, wow, he seeks out that, and he was so good at finding people like that. which is terrifying, actually, to think about that. So, not just, I understand where you struggle with the blame of that. I have to say I did too. I used to think it's because I had these short shorts and it was because the way I acted, but all of that is just completely irrational fears, and it's not. We're just unfortunate victims in this, but when I look at you and I'm listening to you, what I see is somebody who actually came out ahead, in a sense. You found your voice, you've exercised it, and you're strong and thriving. And that is taking, possibly, if you had to say, taking a negative out of the positive, or a positive, excuse me, out of the negative. Look at you, like, look how remarkable that is. And I think that comes through hard work, perseverance, and perseverance is the key.
Yay, amen. And I have to tell you a really quick story. So I I was just telling the story today, and you're talking about having a voice. So I was pulling into our neighborhood, and I live on Hilton Head Island in South Carolina, and we live in a gated community, so we have to come through a gate. There's a security guard, and there was this guy driving like a maniac. This was like a month ago, driving like a crazy person behind me, swerving back and forth like this inch from my bumper. He was trying to get around, and I there was nowhere for me to go. There was somebody in front of me. So I eventually made it to the gate, and he was two cars back from me at this point because someone had pulled over in between. And I said to the gate attendant, "Hey, that guy back in that red car is driving very erratically. Can you just pause him for a second here at the gates so I can get on ahead? I'm at the first right, like and then I'll be out of his way." Well, she kept him for like 3 seconds. So he just came barreling up behind me again. Well, then he started following me. And I
Oh,
said, "I'm not pulling in my driveway." Like that voice, right? "I'm not pulling in my driveway." So
oh,
I drove through the neighborhood, and then I was coming in a dead end, and I was like, "Oh no." So there was a circle driveway in somebody's front yard, or, in front of their house. So I went through the circle driveway. He followed me through that. And then I said, "Okay, he really is following me. I'm not being paranoid." So I called the security department and I said, "Hey, this guy's following me. Here's what happened." And they said, "Well, come back to the gate." And so anyway, they ended up sending a security officer to my house. And here's the whole my whole point of this. This guy says to me, "Well, next time just don't say anything, because, crazy drivers are just going to be crazy drivers." And I said, "Hold up 1 second." I said, "I am an abuse survivor, sexual abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse." I said, "And I did not have a voice for so very long." And I said, "So now I use that voice. And for you to stand here in my kitchen and tell me to not say anything, you're asking me to not use my voice. And I'm telling you that's not going to happen." And I was so taken aback because he said, "Wow, thank you for bringing that to my attention." And he said, "That is a lesson learned for me." And he said, "I really appreciate you telling me that." And I said, "Well, I really appreciate you listening." And so it was a moment to have like this educational conversation. I wasn't nasty or mean. I just was like, "Hold up. Let me tell you a little story." So, and I think that's what we need to do. And that's what you're doing, is like, "Oh, hey, let's talk about this." And I love it.
thank you. Thank you. Uh,
Yeah.
that was pretty amazing that you did that, though. Yeah.
Yeah. It was just one of those moments where I was like, "Wait, hold up." I know it's just a guy driving like a maniac behind me, but you're still trying to tell me, don't really stir the pot. Well, I'm going to stir the pot. Like, so anyway. Well, so how do folks connect with you? How do they get a hold of your book and all that fun stuff?
Well, probably the best place on Amazon. I'm pretty much in every, well, let's see here, Barnes and Noble, wherever you could buy books. I would have to say probably Amazon is the best, easiest way that people access purchasing books. But I also have a blog, and that's www.cindytalks.com, and you can reach me there. And look forward to, hopefully you'll check out my workbook, and that's more of a of a self-help portion to what I'm talking about, and those are the tools that I found, really without a therapist. Those are the things that saved me when I was 16 after I dissociated and forgot about my whole childhood. I became suicidal, and those were the things that kind of saved me. Now they're a lot more sophisticated, so I'm going to be writing they're written a lot more about the sophistication, and they've evolved over the years. But, basically, if I do believe that we all have the innate ability to heal ourselves if we really listen to our intuition, if we really have a will to persevere. And that's my true belief is that we can heal ourselves.
Oh, 100%. Yes. And I think that's where, when I finally got to that moment, like I was always told, oh, once you've had trauma, like it's just kind of your nervous system is a wreck forever and you're just kind of broken. And once I came to like realized, no, like we have the capacity to not just heal, but then, I told you about my choose happy sign right here. And like we can live a life filled with joy and peace, even in the midst of chaos, even while we're on our healing path. Like, yeah, it's possible. And so, again, I thank you for sharing that message because it's so true and so very needed. Yeah.
Mhm.
All right. Well, it has just been wonderful. Thank you for, as a survivor myself, like, again, my heart hugs yours because having these conversations is oh so hard about sexual abuse, but oh so needed. So thank you for putting your truth out there.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. I'm grateful for being here.
Awesome. All right. Well, everyone, thanks for joining us today on the Healing Place podcast. And remember, until next time, be gentle with yourself. Thanks. Bye-bye. Hey, everybody. Teri Wellbrock here. Just wanted to thank you again for being a part of this healing space and my hashtag hope for healing journey. Thank you for sharing, liking, inviting others to join, listening in. You've really helped this show blossom. It has now been downloaded in 136 countries and is in the top 2% globally out of 3.2 million shows, which is just amazing. And it's all because of you and your tuning in and inviting others and sharing and liking and loving. And your reviews on Apple really help too. My goal is to hit 100 5-star reviews by the end of the year. And I am closing in on that. So if you are listening in on Apple or Apple Podcasts, please go and rate the show and leave a review if you absolutely love it. And I would be most appreciative. Also, if you would like to receive my monthly Hope for Healing newsletter, please be sure to go to teriwellbrock.com. It's Teri, just one R, WELLBROCK.com. And I have a gift to send you for signing up for that monthly Hope for Healing newsletter. Plus, there are many other resources listed on that page, including a resource library. All right. Thanks. Bye-bye.